till the Syracuse opener for this season, and we've got a couple of bold predictions for you, and we're also going to give you our season record for Syracuse. We're going to do all that and more. It's the Locked On Syracuse podcast.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in. It's Wednesday here on the Locked On Syracuse podcast as we inch closer and closer to the start of the college football season. I guess the college football season already underway. The start of the real college football season, because week 0, unless you're giving me a real matchup, it doesn't count. This past week 0, that was awful football. It was fun to watch. Don't get me wrong, I love football, but it was at the end of the day, it was Illinois, Nebraska. It's everything you'd expect out of that game. Today on the show, we've got some bold predictions for you. We're also going to give you our season prediction, our record for this upcoming Syracuse season. And also, I want to remind you, because we said football is back, and it's not just college football. The NFL season also about to begin, and nobody covers it like the Locked On Podcast Network. August 30th through September 8th, Locked On's Ultimate Season Preview is taking you through every single team, every single division, with the help of Odyssey's Ross Tucker and Jason Lockenfor. What a duo that is. Follow the Ultimate Season Preview 2021 feed on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts, beginning August 30th. We're also on YouTube right now, so if you're new to the show, or if you're just diving in, or even if you're subscribed to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, subscribe to us on YouTube as well, because you're going to get some bonus content throughout the season as well there. Also, we're on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. But today, Tim, we've got a couple of bold predictions. I don't know what yours are. You don't know what mine are. We're kind of blindsiding each other. Who knows? We might have the same exact bold predictions. Our bold predictions might be the complete opposite and be contradictory of each other here on today's show. But I've got one offensive, one defensive. I don't know about you, if you've broken yours down that way as well.
I actually have 2 offensive, just looking at it now. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess if you're going bold with this team, you probably have to do it on the offensive side. Saying stuff about the offense is a little more bold than I think maybe the defense. So why don't you kick us off? What is your first bold prediction that you've got for this Syracuse season?
All right. First bold prediction. They won't pass to the tight ends. No, I'm kidding. That would be the easiest one ever.
I almost had to get you out of here because of that. That's not bold. Your spice scale is not up to snuff on that one.
Right. So my actual first bold prediction, I think the running game is going to shine, but Abdul Adams doesn't factor into it. And honestly, I'm a little worried that this might be his last year at Syracuse. He might transfer out or just not get the carries he's expecting. But the reason why I think the running game is going to shine, which might not be a bold prediction in and of itself, but I think when you tack on Abdul Adams, then maybe I can get to bold prediction territory, hopefully. I just think Dino has been glowing about these running backs. The way that he talked about them at the ACC media days, how he said, I have no concerns about that group. They're all competing great with one another. And then the other thing is Chris Elmore is back in his fullback position. And that's being overlooked. That's something we've talked about on this podcast, but that's huge. They run behind Chris Elmore often. It seems like they have added more under center snaps in camp, and that's going to talk a little bit. So I expect to see them line up in that ISO formation a little bit more, line up under center, and just use this running game a lot more because they have some of the best running backs in the ACC.
I like that. And you bring it up. The depth of this running back room is ultimately what's going to allow it to succeed, because it felt like, to a degree, it succeeded in spite of an awful offensive line from a season ago. And if they could do all of that with a bad offensive line, and now you hear Dino glowing about it, Sean Tucker year 2, again, you hope you don't hit the sophomore slump with Sean Tucker. And a lot of where sophomore slumps come down to is you just lean on what you knew as a freshman. And when you do that as a sophomore, guess what? Defenses pick up on you, especially when you do have a bad offensive line, which who knows what the case is going to be like for this year. You hope it's improved, and you hope that, like you mentioned, I think the Chris Elmore point's a good one too. You'll have him leading you out of the backfield a number of times as well. But at the end of the day, you cannot just lean on what you know as a freshman. Otherwise, you're gonna take a step back from year to year.
There has been some talk in preseason. Tommy DeVito's talked about how this is the most versatile offense I've had since I've been at Syracuse. And it seems like Sterling Gilbert is maybe taking some more chances now that he's had that full offseason. He's going into year 2 here. I feel like that means that they're going to be more run dominant. And if you're Dino Babers, I just have a feeling that he looked back on this past year. He reflected during the offseason. He said, all right, I've got to make some changes to this offense. It's not working like I thought it would. Tommy is not working. We need to get him more run game to help him out. Maybe we got these great running backs. Let's cater to our strengths a little bit more. So I do feel like they're going to lean in on the run game more this year because of that, because Chris Elmore's back. The talk about the versatility, the talk about how good these running backs have been. I mean, he's been glowing about Cooper Lutz. Dino, I mean, really all offseason. He doesn't usually do that. He doesn't usually single out players. So the way that he's talked about the running backs gives me confidence that he really has a lot of confidence in that group.
All right, my bold prediction, a little bit contradictory to yours, but you'll see why in a second. But I'm going to say Taj Harris is going to be an All-American this year. That's my bold prediction for the offense. And here's why. He's going to, it looks like now, move to the slot. And we saw what the production looked like when he was primarily out of the slot. I mean, 2 of his best games of the season last year, he had his highest slot percentages. And I look at some of the numbers from that game. NC State, 13 receptions, 146 yards and a touchdown. Duke, 6 receptions, 138 yards and a touchdown. If you're doing that, listen, he's not going to do that every single game, but if you're hovering around that 100-yard mark, if you can be an 1,000-yard receiver, catch 90 balls as well, score a handful of touchdowns, yeah, you're going to be in the All-American consideration. And you can say, well, Tyler, like this team, you've said it, they're not going to be very good this year. Well, when Syracuse has had All-American receivers, they haven't been very good teams. They've been 4-8 teams. So, and I think that also helps because remember, a lot of this is numbers dependent. When you're losing, you throw the ball more. And who are they going to look to throw to? Taj Harris. So I think his numbers could see a big time spike this year. We've seen him grow year to year. And I think moving him to the slot, moving him into a position where he has thrived is going to help him become an All-American this year.
It really has been kind of a nightmare situation for him recently where he's been the only guy that the defense has had to concentrate on. He's really just done a lot of vertical routes, which has led to some touchdowns, and he does have that in his game. But his strength, as we've talked about, is getting the ball in his hands and making him make plays after the catch. And that's what they're going to do. And they're going to be able to get to him the ball a lot more in the slot, which they have to understand. I think it goes back to what I said about Sean Tucker, like cater to your strengths this year. Dino had to just look back on last year and think, all right, I've got Luke Benson. He's this great tight end. We didn't use him enough. Taj Harris is someone that every ACC team would love to have at wide receiver. How can we get him the ball more? Sean Tucker, great up-and-coming running back. How can we get him the ball more? That's what you got to do when the offense isn't working.
And by moving him to the slot, I mean, think about what happened when Syracuse had Irv Phillips. Irv Phillips went out there and put together some 90-catch seasons. And with Tommy DeVito, he's most comfortable with Taj Harris. There is a clear chemistry between the two of them. When you've got 2 seconds to throw, okay, you're going to go to the guy, A, that you trust, and B, who's closest to you on the line of scrimmage from a receiver standpoint. It's going to be Taj Harris.
Right. I do feel like the chemistry's been a little iffy at times between them, but by year 5 and all, I do think they've been together more than any other receiver quarterback combination on that roster. So that says something about how well they will perform together this year.
All right, we'll get you bold prediction number 2 in just a second. But first, it's that time of year again. All eyes turn to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the season. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest. That's all open now at betonline.ag. So head on over to the website or use your phone to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. All you got to do is punch punch in our promo code Locked On. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on Thursday, September 9th, season opener between the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when you sign up and use the promo code NFL100. We're giving you 2 promo codes here. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for 2021. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, bold prediction number 2. You said you've got a pair of offensive ones. I've got a defensive one. Since we've done a couple of offensive ones, let's continue with it here. What is your second bold prediction for the upcoming season?
All right, this one might backfire on me a little bit. This is the one where I'm kind of going out on the ledge.
Most predictions do. I don't think you don't have to throw that disclaimer out there. I can't wait for the person who digs up this episode in November and is just like firing from the hip at us because of what we said. Like, these are bold predictions. We're going out on a limb here, right?
Right.
What's the saying?
And
go out on a limb. That's where all the fruit is. That's what we're doing here.
I feel like my first one wasn't really that much out on a limb. So here's my second one. Tommy DeVito dramatically improves this year and starts every single game at quarterback, which is not, I mean, I really think there's 2 scenarios, and we've talked about it. I think there is a world, and I'd be naive to not acknowledge that there's a world where he just comes out and looks like the guy we've seen the past 2 years, and the offensive line does make some strides, but it's not enough to really show enough strides in his game, and Garrett Trader takes over. I think that's still very possible. I think it's a real possibility, but I really do think things are lining up for DeVito this year. I brought up the running game in my first point. If the running game is much better, and if he's under center, then they just have more flexibility in the offense. That opens up the play action for him. It opens up his deep ball more. It opens up more of the field for him to pass to. They're less predictable. And I do think this offensive line, it has to be better, right? Like, it can't be as bad as it was last year. If they stay healthy.
That's not necessarily a ringing endorsement, but it will be better.
Right.
You'd imagine. And like I said yesterday, if it's not better, this team is winning 1 game, and it's against Albany.
Right, which is sad. But look, like 2018, it was a good offensive line. 2019, 2020 was terrible. If it's in between 2018 and 2020, I think we can see an in-between Tommy DeVito. He looked really good in 2018. He might not get to that level, but he's got to have improved. He's got to know this offense like the back of his hand by now. He's got to have great chemistry with the receivers. I just think if this is ever a year for Tommy DeVito to show out, for talent to win out, it's this year. And he also starts with Ohio. That gives me some confidence because, and look, Ohio, they might not even win that game. We're going to preview them. They're a decent team, but it's better than starting at UNC or starting at Clemson or something. Like, he can get his feet and legs under him a little bit and hopefully just get some confidence, because that's what it comes down to with DeVito. It's all mental. And if he can get that confidence to start the season, maybe he can actually, like, you know, hit the pedal and start playing aggressive and playing like we saw in 2018.
And you and I have talked about this. The early season schedule for Syracuse, it kind of sucks the way it lines up. You would have liked to have that Albany game out of the gate, because it would have, A, helped you maybe solidified what you're going to do at the quarterback position, and B, just the easing back into football. I mean, in the case of Garrett Schrader, the kid hasn't played quarterback in nearly 2 years now. You want to ease him back into competition. You don't want to throw in a team that could win the MAC and a team that is out of the Power 5. You can make all your Rutgers jokes you want. They're not the Rutgers team that people used to poo-poo a couple of years ago. So it would have been nice, but I do think you bring up a good point. And we talked about this a little bit when we compare and contrast DeVito and Dungy. Dungy was healthy for the majority of that senior season, and he did play the bulk of the games, especially the ones that mattered. And I think about, in the case of Eric Dungy, I think part of it was he got to his senior season, and he was just a smarter player. And that's what allowed for him to play and start in every single game in that final season. I would hope the same is the case for DeVito, where he's just a smarter player, knows how to avoid some of these injuries. And again, you just hope the offensive line doesn't get him killed back there, but you just hope he's smarter this year. And I think that's a real possibility.
And so much depends on that first game. And the way you talked about the schedule, it sounds so foolish to say this, but it really does kind of feel like Ohio's sort of a de facto must-win game, in my opinion,
Yes.
because if you lose that, then it just sets this season in a totally different path. And it's like, oh, crap, where are we going to win games if we can't even beat Ohio? If you win
If
it,
you
then you're
lose-
1-0.
Like the
Right.
optics of losing to Ohio and then Rutgers, if that does happen, which, hey, there's a real possibility that could happen.
Yeah.
This team could start off 0-2. All right. And that's a reality that I think some Syracuse fans need to start staring in the eye. If this team starts off 0-2, Panicville is going to be population everyone in the greater Syracuse area. Because
it's such a big game.
Optically, it looks bad. But I'm thinking through it. You're not favorites in week 1. I don't have a look-ahead line right now from BetOnline.ag for week 2, but it wouldn't shock me if they're underdogs
They're not going to be
again.
favored now.
Yeah,
and I think it's flip-flopped a little bit. I think BetOnline may have them favored now against Ohio, last I looked, but we'll discuss that on tomorrow's show when it does become sort of time to discuss that. Anyways, it's such a big game because not only like if they win is one thing, but are they going to win ugly? Is the offensive line still going to look porous against an Ohio team out of the MAC? Or is the offensive line going to look dominant like they should? And DeVito's going to look dominant like, frankly, he should as a 4-star quarterback in his 5th year with the program or whatever it is now. So if they can win with conviction, that completely alters my confidence level in Tommy DeVito and really the whole team going forward.
Yeah. All right. So my second bold prediction here, you had a good one there. I like that one with DeVito. I've got one for Deuce Chestnut for you. How about this? He's going to lead the ACC in interceptions.
Yes.
That's my Deuce Chestnut little nugget for you. And here's why, okay? I think it sets up pretty nicely for him to maybe do something like that. What do we know about him as a player? Aggressive. He's going to be physical with you. He's going to try to make the big money play, right? He's going to get beat plenty too. And hey, guess what? Andre Cisco got beat a lot. That's something that people haven't talked about. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this. Out of all the rookie safeties, Andre Cisco, the highest Pro Football Focus grade in the preseason. And Trill Williams, he made the Dolphins roster as well. So
shout out to them.
Good on him.
They all made the
shout
team,
out to, they all did, which is awesome to see. But getting back to my Deuce Chestnut point, those aggressive guys, they have a knack to make the big play. And Deuce Chestnut has that in him from everything we've heard, everything that has been kind of shown in practice and all that stuff. And guess what? He's going to be targeted more than any cornerback, maybe in the entire country, because he's a freshman playing on a bad team, and they want to try to establish that and beat the freshman. Well, one way that you can stop that is by making plays. And Deuce Chestnut, I think, is a guy that can be a playmaker for this team. But like we kind of said when we were previewing cornerbacks, Garrett Williams got picked on time and time again. Why? Because there was an NFL caliber corner on the other side of him. Guess what? That's the situation that Deuce Chestnut is walking into this year. There's a guy who might be a first rounder on the other side of him this time.
Yeah. You know, it's weird. I'm actually pretty confident in the secondary, even though they're way more inexperienced than the other facets of the defense, defensive line, linebackers. Like, that's where I should be confident in theory. But for some reason, I feel like rush defense is going to be more of a problem this year than pass defense. And I think that's just because of the hype that I'm buying on a lot of these guys in the secondary. Deuce Chestnut won, Jahad Carter, Jason Simmons. I think Garrett Williams is obviously, like, the hype speaks for itself there. But it's a decent secondary that I know they're inexperienced, but I just like a lot of those individual pieces. So I think they come together this year in the second year in that defense.
So let me bring up some of the numbers from a season ago.
Yeah.
Garrett Williams, 67 targets. That was the 6th most in the entire country. Deuce Chestnut is going to see a very similar workload to that this season because teams aren't going to want to attack Garrett Williams. They're going to want to pick on the little freshman. And guess what? Deuce Chestnut rather has a chance to change the narrative right out of the gate. Maybe make some guys look more over the middle, or maybe dare they try Garrett Williams and say, all right, let's see if you really are a first round talent on the other side, because Deuce is going to play well. So Deuce Chestnut to lead the ACC in interceptions. That is my bold prediction for 2021. That's on the defensive side of the ball. All right. When we come back, we will get you our season predictions. What's the record going to look like? All that good stuff coming up in just a little bit. But Did you know the Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors, including the occasional limited time flavor? When you talk to Built Bar fans like Tim and myself, we're always passionate about our favorites. You know what we love. It is the peanut butter brownie. We've talked about it time and time again on this show, but they've got plenty of other flavors as well, whether it's fruit flavors like cherry and raspberry, maybe you like some other chocolatey flavors like mint brownie, or the double chocolate as well. There's something for everyone. And if you haven't tried all the flavors, get yourself a mixed box and you'll get 2 of each of the 9. They're healthy for you as well. 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar. So order today, get the raspberry, mint brownie, the peanut butter brownie, or get a mixed box, or get whatever else you like. Go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your first order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, let's dive into the schedule here for this upcoming season, because BetOnline.ag, they've got their win total out for Syracuse this year. It is
you have to
right
say
on the
it.
head.
I don't even want to hear
3.
it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to relive that nightmare for you here, but we talked about it last year, and I think we pretty much hit it on the head. What was the win total? I think it was 3.5 last year too, if I'm remembering correctly. And
so what is the BetOnline? Sorry, I kind of cut you off there. Was it
it
2,
is 3,
2.5? Oh, 3. Okay.
All right. 3 this year. Yeah. So yeah, it's tough to get amped up for a team that Vegas thinks is going 3-9. But anyway, looking at last year, I think we hit it spot on. We said, hey, this is a bad team. It's got a bad offensive line. It's got bad everything pretty much. You've got a couple standouts on the defensive side of the ball, but new coordinator, new system, pandemic shortened offseason wasn't inspiring for a lot of success. And I don't think this team is inspiring for much more success this year. Now, will they win more than one game? I think both you and I are in agreement that they will.
Yeah.
But when you look at 3 and when you're searching for wins on the schedule, it feels about right.
I know. That's the thing. Like, I actually think this team's going to be a lot better than last year. And yes. I know that's not saying a whole lot. Like, you have to be better than what they were last year to an extent. I think DeVito, as I said, is going to be much better this year. I think they actually have some offensive capability this year, just some sort of playmaking on the offensive side of the ball. They'll lean into the run game. Their secondary, I'm not too worried about. Wide receivers, like, I think they're going to be good. And then I go and look at the schedule, and I just feel like it's a nightmare of a schedule, because I feel like they're only going to get better as the season progresses. And these early games are at the start. And I'm worried about Ohio a little bit. Like, it's on the road. It's a like lose type of game, or whatever you want to call it. Like, you can't lose it. There's only pressure on you. They've got some banged up offensive linemen already. Like, Dakota Davis hasn't been practicing a ton. We don't know what we're going to see there. So I don't know. I just don't think the schedule lines up for wins this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tough, especially the back end when you've got 3 of your final 5 on the road, and the teams that you've got at home are BC and Pitt. I mean, BC's people think could be the team that contends with Clemson in the ACC Atlantic this year.
This is the best the Atlantic has been, I think, since Syracuse has joined the ACC.
And guess what? Look at the quarterbacks on the schedule, too. I mean, the quarterbacks across the conference. They are another tier above. Like, the ACC probably has the best quarterback conference in the entire country. And Syracuse is going to have to go through the gauntlet defensively. And if you're getting torched pretty good and that defense is on the field for a long time, they're going to be worn down. And if the offense is back to its 3-and-out ways, well, it could be a very, very long season for them. But I'm looking at the schedule right now. I've got 3-9.
That's what I'm thinking. I think Albany, we can all agree that's a win.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt. No matter how bad or how good they are at that point by week 3. Ohio, Rutgers, I would say 1-1.
You come away with 1 win there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my prediction. I think they could be 3-0. There's a legit possibility they're 3-0 there. It wouldn't shock me.
You could also finish 0-9.
I also think it could be. Right. It's like that one year. What was it? 2015, I think, where they went 3-0.
They started off 3-0, and then they went the next 0-8, and then they won the finale for Scott Schaefer. They walked him off on his shoulders, and that was that.
And that might happen because their last game's home against Pitt. That's winnable. There's not a lot of easy games, though. I mean, the Coastal games, Pitt at home, Virginia Tech on the road. Virginia Tech's not like what they used to be maybe, but that's still on the road in Blacksburg. Then you've got Clemson. You've got Florida State on the road. Florida State's the type of game that weirdly this year I would think, oh man, they might actually beat Florida State if they're at home. It's kind of a bummer it's on the road. Louisville, same thing in their division. I think they could beat them at home.
And that one's off a bye too.
Yeah, so they could win that game even though it's on the road. I mean, they definitely could still win it. I feel better if the schedule lined up to where like Louisville's at home, Florida State's at home, and BC is just better this year. Wake's better this year. Some of those teams that used to be like, oh, maybe we can get a game here or there, they still can. They still could beat BC, and BC could just fall flat on its face. Who knows? But on paper, they're a much better team than Syracuse this year.
Right. And okay, so I've given out the 3 and 9, but I will say this. If you made me pick, if you just told me, all right, Syracuse is not winning 3 games this year, okay? Like the universe has told me this fact, okay?
Yeah.
They're not winning 3 games this year. Are they going to win more or less? Probably say more. I would lean
I think
towards
so.
this team would be a 4-win team than a 2-win team. I just see them as a 3-win team. But if the gods have told me that is out of the realm of possibility, I would lean more towards they will win 4 games than they'll win 2 games.
I'm closer to 4 than 2 for sure. And I was frankly pretty close to 4, just saying 4. I think 3 is just because of the schedule.
Yeah, well, when you and I were talking before the show in the backstage area, we were thinking, okay, like, yeah, I'm probably going to say 4. I think I'm going to say 4. And then we were like, no, it's actually probably more like 3. But if they win 4, it wouldn't shock me either.
No.
I just see 3 given the schedule, given where this team is, given where the offensive line is, and given the youth across the board as well.
And let's face it, they went 1-10 last year. It was a 1-10 one. I can't remember. 1-10. They got Georgia Tech and Duke. They don't have them this year. It'd be great if they did. They did have a tough schedule last year. There's no denying that. But you play Liberty again. Liberty is going to be, if anything, probably a little bit better this year. You will get them at home, which is nice, I believe. But anyway, They were really bad last year. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat that, unfortunately. And when you dive into the numbers, they were probably like, sometimes it's just like, we didn't win those close games, or we were 1-10, but we had injuries and we probably could have been a 3-4 win team. They did have injuries, but yards per game, like what they allowed, score differential, any of those statistics, they were just terrible. Like, they weren't even close to winning games in the yard column ever against good teams. So how are they going to make a leap from 1 to like 5 or 6? I just think it's too much with the schedule they have.
It would take, to get to a bowl, if this team is going to make a bowl game, which both you and I think is a lot of work.
It could happen. I mean, they were picked to finish last when they went 10-3. The difference is the division is so much better this year than that year.
The division is better. I think you were a lot more confident in the quarterback heading into that 10-3 season than you are in the quarterback heading into this season. And you're probably a lot more confident in the actually, not probably, you were a lot more confident in the offensive line and the surrounding weapons as well than you are with this team. So the way that they can wiggle in and maybe muster out 6 wins, again, it's a far-fetched proposition, but the way that they do that, in my opinion, the offensive line has to play at a B level. They have to play at a grade B level if they want to make a bowl game. Second thing is the quarterback has to play like Eric Dungy played. And actually, not even like Eric Dungy played. The quarterback has to play at a much higher level. Given the other quarterbacks in this conference, Tommy DeVito has to be thought of, I think, as a top 6 quarterback in the conference.
Yeah. It feels unrealistic that he get there. I'm predicting him to have a good year, but that's tough. I mean, that's a huge climb from what we've seen from him the past couple years. The thing about it is, yes, the offensive line. I'm a big proponent in the last 2 years has been mostly because of the offensive line, but the defense has still been bad. They've still been allowing a lot of yards on the ground. They've still been missing tackles. Now, all those guys are back and they should be better, but let's face it, like, they're still going to get blown out by Clemson. They're still going to get probably blown out even out of Florida State, like, just because of the talent gap that they have when you look at the trenches and the size gap and all that. So as much as I really think this team's going to show strides, I don't think we're going to finish this year and be like, God, Dino needs to be fired. I think we're going to see some positive things from this team, but I just don't think the schedule lines up for a bowl game, unfortunately.
And you bring up the thing about the defense, how, yeah, they still took their lumps last year. If the offense improves, the defense will improve.
Yeah, and it's year two with Tony White. I mean, they should be good. I'm confident in the defense for what they are.
The best defense is not having to play defense. When you're out there for 30-second 3-and-outs, your defense is going to be dog-ass tired by the fourth quarter. And we saw that. Like, in that first game against UNC, a very good team, this Syracuse defense was playing phenomenal in the first 3 quarters. And it just got to the point where the offense wasn't helping them out. They weren't moving the ball. They weren't picking up first downs. And you saw the fatigue play a factor late in the second half and into that fourth quarter where they just couldn't keep up. And then your tackle form gets sloppy. You're missing tackles. You're letting opposing running games. And that team had 2 NFL backs in their backfield that they were attacking you with.
Right.
All of that. Like, if the offense is better and if the time of possession gap has shrunk, the defense will automatically be better. It just will. You'll be fresher out there. And quite frankly, you'll be a little more motivated too. I really think that's the case where the defense said, okay, well, if we can't hold this team to under 13 points, we don't have a shot today. And once you cross that 13-point threshold, well, then the wheels come off the wagon.
I do think the floor of this team is much higher than last year. And I guess not so much in the win column, but just like what we're going to see, how competitive they're going to be in games. Because if DeVito stinks again, at least you've got Garrett Schrader. That's better than Rex Culpepper for sure. If, the defensive line runs into some injuries or stuff, like I guess they're not totally deep there, but everyone has had more experience. Like you don't have to throw Rob Hanna and Jihad Carter into the fire as true freshmen. You've got other options back there. Hopefully like an Eric Coley stays healthy, someone like that. So just based on the bodies they returned, they are only going to get better in terms of a brand on the football field. It's just, I really wish they had some games later in their schedule, even in the middle part of their schedule, that was like, oh yeah, that's one that we are circling that they could win. And frankly, right now, the reason why Vegas has it so low and BetOnline has it so low at 3 is because when you go through the games one by one, they're only favored in probably Ohio's like a toss-up, and Albany, they'll be favored for sure. And maybe one more, depending on how the game flow and like bye week, maybe Louisville, that type of stuff. But they're just not favored in a ton of games. So you're having to like outkick your coverage to get to 4.
Absolutely. And one note on on the quarterback point you brought up, and then we'll get out of here. There's a chance that your second string quarterback this year is better than your first string. That just has not been a possibility the last 2 seasons. And when you're dealing with quarterback injuries, that's something that you have to take note of. And like injuries happen. If DeVito gets hurt this year, you're going to be miles more confident because you're bringing in a former 4-star. You look across this roster. How many 4-stars do you have on it? 2 of them are in your quarterback room. Yeah. That's a good start. And you can say, okay, well, Garrett Schrader got kicked out of Miami because he wasn't a good enough quarterback for Mike Leach's system. All right, whatever. But guess what? Dino and Mike Leach run very different systems. Garrett Schrader was a solid quarterback his freshman year. And I think that iteration of Mississippi State is a little closer to what Syracuse is running than what the regime that kind of pushed him out the door did. So that's another thing to keep in mind for the upcoming season as well. All right, that's going to do it for us here on this Wednesday Locked on Syracuse. We will be back with you tomorrow, Thursday. We're going to start our Ohio preview, get you everything you need to know about the Bobcats. We're doing that on tomorrow's show. Also, later on in the week, we will have Anthony DeBundo on for DeBundo's Digits. It is back. It is also in video form this year as well. So be on the lookout for that. We are looking forward to having Anthony DeBundo with us for the upcoming season. So for Tim, I'm Tyler. We will talk to you guys with all things